Hi, hello, and welcome to the Dunker Spot Film Room. I am Nekias Duncan, joined as always by my guy, the always excellent Steve Jones Jr. Steve, how are we doing?
Happy to be here. Excited to be here. Ready to talk through some hoops, some clips. If you have any cool names, dunkers out there for the film room, let us know. But we are going to try and get some more breakdowns in here for you.
We're going to have some fun, and we are going to start with the Cleveland Cavaliers defense. We are a couple of days removed now from an emphatic win for them against the New York Knicks, where the Knicks had one of their worst offensive performances of the season, a 76.5 offensive rating in the half court for them. That was the third worst mark of the year, one of the worst pick and roll performances for them. And in this game, I was pretty impressed with Cleveland's game plan overall, the way that they matched up, the level of scheme versatility that they displayed, the level of scheme nuance that they displayed. And so I want to talk through some of my favorite clips or favorite possessions defensively from Cleveland in that game and kind of talk through what they did, why it worked, and how it can loom kind of large moving forward for them this year. So as we get to the beginning of this game, it's going to be Jalen Brunson kicking off a double pick and roll, but you will note immediately the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers are matching up. So traditionally, if you want to go point guard on point guard, shooting guard on shooting guard, etc., you would have Donovan Mitchell and James Harden guarding Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. You would go Dean Wade on OG Anunoby, so on and so forth. But Cleveland has mixed things up. You have Dean Wade on Jalen Brunson. You have Jared Allen defending Josh Hart. You have Evan Mobley on Karl-Anthony Towns. You got James Harden over in the corner on OG Anunoby. And the theory behind that is trying to flatten out New York's half-court offense. If you have Dean Wade on Jalen Brunson and Evan Mobley, a Defensive Player of the Year winner, on Karl-Anthony Towns, we can turn any of those two-man actions, pick and rolls, off-ball screens, dribble handoffs. We can turn all those into switches. And with Jared Allen defending Josh Hart, in theory, you have a guy that can just kind of roam and stick around in the paint. You don't have to worry about Josh Hart as a shooter. Can knock down shots, but not a threatening shooter at the very least. And so now as we go to the middle of this clip, you see early switching. You saw Donovan Mitchell jump out to make sure that Jalen Brunson wasn't able to get to that left hand. You do body positioning there. We have Josh Hart in the middle of the floor now. And after a handoff between OG Anunoby and Karl-Anthony Towns, you have those matchups switched. You have Harden on Cat. You have Mobley on OG Anunoby. Donovan Mitchell setting up to be a little bit physical with Jalen Brunson, so he doesn't have a cut available to him as the Knicks flow to the second side of their action. And now as we roll now, no free cut. You see a little bit of the nuance. Dean Wade goes under on the Mikal Bridges handoff. Donovan Mitchell navigating the screen. He's not switching immediately, but because he is a little bit behind Jalen Brunson as he gets ready to attack, he does have a little bit of space in front of him. And so now as we roll it, Jalen Brunson gets downhill, a couple of dribbles. Jared Allen is there. We're picking that up. Donovan Mitchell flowing back out to Josh Hart. This is ultimately going to end with a missed three-point basket from Josh Hart. Steve, I'll ask you a question to kind of toss it to you to see what else stood out to you on this possession. With that switch with Donovan Mitchell in particular, is that just a late switch for the people that want to get more into terminology? Would that be a veer back example, or how would you kind of describe what that last portion of the play was?
It's just a late switch. So, if we go back to the first possession that we had, I think one of the biggest keys is taking away the counters that Cleveland had. The Knicks would have, technically, because if you put someone on Cat that makes it a switch, usually that means Josh Hart becomes a screener. And so it's just kind of having the nuance on that first possession to be able to not just say, okay, yeah, Dean Wade's guarding Jalen Brunson, but Donovan Mitchell's going to have to be involved at some point. So we're not afraid to switch that, and we're going to dictate terms. So I think that activity is good. And then, yeah, it's James Harden over there, but that's also a switch. We can put James Harden on Karl-Anthony Towns. We can kind of dictate terms that way. And the biggest thing is not having to put ourselves in a position where weak side, we're in a tough spot. We're taking away the Knicks flow because we're switching those actions between Mobley and Harden. And then that late switch there is important because, okay, we have flexibility. So it's not just, okay, we're going to switch out, right? Yeah, Donovan got a little bit. So Jared Allen said, I'll take it. We veer back out to the pop, but everyone else was able to stay home. We weren't in rotation. So that was the biggest key for Cleveland on that position, was just their activity and their nuance to understand, yes, we're trying to take certain things away, but we're going to make sure we stay at home as much as we can.
Understood. Let's get to the next possession. This one happening a little bit later in the first quarter. Going to have Brunson bring it up. And as we pause it here, you have Mikal Bridges setting an early screen for Jalen Brunson to give him the Donovan Mitchell switch. And on the right side of the floor, James Harden still has OG Anunoby, but playing off. Evan Mobley still on Karl-Anthony Towns. You have Jared Allen on Josh Hart. So as we keep it rolling, they get to the second side of the floor. It's a pitch and it's a pick and roll. I want to pause it here. I want to note the positioning of James Harden here, that body language and him getting into the body and into the handle of OG Anunoby that signals to me, as we talked a little bit about scheme nuance and scheme versatility a little bit earlier, James Harden is working to navigate the screen. I think he's playing that top shoulder of Josh Hart. If he was going under, then he would be a little bit lower on the floor. You can just turn it into a switch, but Harden's looking to navigate. It's also worth noting Jared Allen here is technically at the level of the screen or slightly below. So in the event that James Harden does get clipped on the screen, Jared Allen is in position to kind of assume that drive, take that on from OG Anunoby if Harden isn't able to navigate. But as we roll it, Harden's able to stay attached. You get a cut from Mikal Bridges. Dean Wade working to get back in front of Mikal Bridges. This was a solid cut, but the recovery is there. Jared Allen in the paint, not worried too much about Josh Hart, who's going to peter out to that right corner. And as you roll it, Dean Wade's able to get back. Nice contest, missed shot. 3 bodies versus 1 on the defensive glass. The Cavs ultimately able to end the possession. See, was there anything that popped for you on that one?
Well, I mean, again, they're willing to give that first switch, but nothing's automatic. So James Harden is navigating this. Jared Allen's not committing, so they show a little nuance there. You probably want that switch to be a little cleaner between Wade and Harden if they're going to do it or stay attached. But at the end of the day, okay, let's get Donovan Mitchell involved. Okay, we're willing to switch that. That's fine, New York. And now you go to James Harden. Jared Allen's like, well, I don't have to switch automatically. I can stay in the drop. I'm with the roll. We're fine. So just having that kind of balance between what we want to do and what we can do, I think is important in today's NBA. To where it's not always an automatic. We're going to be able to stay at home more times than not because Jared Allen can protect against the roller, because Dean Wade can stay on the block. Evan Mobley can kind of be aware of what's happening. So there's no real true automatic. We can stay home, and now we're going to make you flow and take a contested shot.
Yeah. I think contested shot, a makeable shot for Mikal Bridges overall, but even thinking to like the preferred shot profile that you want to give up defensively. I think versus giving up a 3 to OG Anunoby, if James Harden botches any part of that, or getting all the way to the rim if we stay more at home, we're giving up a tough mid-range basket. I think you take that if you are the Cleveland Cavaliers. We can now move to the third clip, also in the first quarter, a little bit later. Nice pass from Harden. Dean Wade misses. We get a little bit of transition defense from Cleveland. They're not able to set up their ideal matchups because of the action. As we pause it here, it is Karl-Anthony Towns getting ready to set a screen for Jalen Brunson with an empty side, or at the very least, it's an empty side for right now. As you can see on the left side of the floor, Mikal Bridges is about to cut from that left wing to the right corner. But for now, it's empty side action. James Harden is already guarding Jalen Brunson. Ideally, that's a matchup he likes. Evan Mobley does have Karl-Anthony Towns. But as we roll it, we're going to get the screen from Karl-Anthony Towns. And we get a switch. And as we pause it here, we're about to see some nice off-ball communication from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, one, with Evan Mobley switching on to Jared Allen, I would like to note that he is slightly shading Jalen Brunson to the right hand. That feels very game plan specific. Let's not let him get to his dominant hand. But on the right side of the floor, James Harden, he's about to point. He's about to tell Dean Wade, hey, Karl-Anthony Towns is cutting through. Take that. I'll take yours, which is Mikal Bridges right now. On the left side, you have Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen. They swap assignments as well. Allen able to get out to Josh Hart to contest the 3. And from there, you get a miss. You get a transition look on the other end.
Well, man, the biggest thing is that once again, you can see Cleveland's ability to stay at home. And so being able to have the versatility of Evan Mobley, being willing to put James Harden on different players allows you the ability to stay at home on different matchups and contain and contest. I think that was a big key for them. Again, the nuance from Cleveland stands out more than anything.
All right, let's get to the next clip. Still in the first quarter, a little bit later, we're getting some subs now. So after a miss, Brunson gets the ball, and immediately, as we pause it here, Dennis Schroeder has picked up Jalen Brunson behind the half court. The higher pickup points for the Cleveland Cavaliers there's been an uptick in that from this past year. They were in the bottom 10 in the league in terms of how often they picked up players in the backcourt last year and the average pickup distance that they had. This year, they're close to the middle of the pack. They were around the top 10 earlier this season. It's become a bigger part of their defensive pie. So Dennis Schroeder fits right into that. He picks up Jalen Brunson early to make sure he doesn't have a free release. So now as we roll it, you get a little bit of nuance, some navigation for Dennis Schroeder. We're going under that high screen. We flip the angle here. We pause it. Jared Allen was up at the level of the screen, ultimately backs out as he sees Dennis Schroeder navigating that screen and getting reattached to Jalen Brunson. You look a little bit further to your right. You don't normally want a bunch of help off of the strong side corner, but that is Jeremy Sohan in the right corner. James Harden, not particularly worried about that. It's more important for Cleveland overall to make sure that Jalen Brunson sees some kind of crowd. We're getting him to his right hand. Jared Allen's getting out. Dennis Schroeder is navigating. James Harden is kind of parked in. Jalen Tyson also peeled in a little bit, that left elbow. And so Jalen Brunson doesn't have a ton of space to operate with here. Get to Sohan. He wants to get it to Brunson. Dennis Schroeder, physical off ball. Jalen Tyson, also physical off ball as Mikal Bridges tries to cut through the middle of the floor. Jalen Tyson not letting it happen. So as we roll it, they're trying to find a way to flow into something else. Brunson ultimately gets a touch, but you get more physicality from Dennis Schroeder. James Harden's lurking. Jalen Tyson's keeping eyes on things. And it turns into yet another tough mid-range turnaround for the New York Knicks. And the Cavs are ultimately able to end the possession. Steve, anything in particular stand out to you there?
Well, no, this is Dennis Schroeder. This is ball pressure. This is, okay, I hear communication on the screen. Let me get under. Let me keep the ball in front. No reject. I'm going to keep it, fight it over, send it to Jared Allen. James Harden's able to recover. And again, the theme of this game for Cleveland was we can now stay at home. So you mentioned the physicality, but look, they don't have to be in rotation. They don't have to worry about helping too much. James is there lurking, saying, hey, I'll bother you if you try and make this drive. But again, for the most part, Cleveland was able to stay home. And that's why you get Dennis Schroeder, because of that, his ability to pressure the ball with that kind of consistency and have that kind of nuance to where we can execute this scheme pretty well, because Dennis Schroeder can mix in the under, knows when to fight over. And now Jared Allen doesn't have to commit to putting two on the ball. Okay, I give you enough pressure so you can get back in front, and then I get back to mine, and we're good to go.
There you go. Good stuff, Steve. Good stuff. We can now move to the next clip, getting into the second quarter. About a minute into the second quarter here, as the New York Knicks looking to push. Jalen Tyson now defending Jose Alvarado. You get some full court pressure there. Has to turn. And as we pause it here, you're going to note, one, the early ball pressure made New York slow down a bit. So you're crossing half court. It's 17 on the clock already. As they're getting ready to set up some sort of off-ball action for Landry Shamet down in the left corner, Keon Ellis being physical, making sure he doesn't have a free release. If Karl-Anthony Towns wants to set a screen for Landry Shamet, the way that Dean Wade is positioned, in addition to him basically wrapping Cat up, you're not going to get a clean screen there either. And so now as we roll it, nothing there for Landry Shamet. Pick and roll, you get a switch. You pause it here. Dean Wade being physical with Karl-Anthony Towns as he tries to set up a touch on the left side of the floor. He started kind of near the elbow. Dean Wade was able to kind of push that catch out, being physical with him. Again, nothing easy for this New York offense. And now as the pass gets to Karl-Anthony Towns, he doesn't really have a chance to establish himself. He's stumbling. Dean Wade gets a deflection, and it ultimately turns into one of the many turnovers that the New York Knicks had in this basketball game.
Yeah, I mean, you just see the pressure again from Jalen Tyson, and then you start the offense out earlier. Keon Ellis is able to kind of navigate. That's why you got him here. And now it's okay. It's not a clean pass. Evan Mobley, and now we're able again to stay at home. So that's the biggest thing for Cleveland. Have more pressure, have more activity, feel more comfortable with having multiple players who can defend multiple positions, and that puts you in a better strength with your base.
Got you. Let's move to the next one. It's going to be a sideline out of bounds play. And before we even get into what happens on the play, I just kind of want to know how ready Cleveland was to defend on this possession. Jalen Brunson's your inbounder. You look towards the middle of the floor. Dennis Schroeder's ready to jump any pass to Mitchell Robinson. Jared Allen's about a step away, and he's ultimately going to put a hand on him when this inbound pass is made. You normally see bigs hovering around the free throw line or a little bit higher. Just let that big get there, and we kind of set up for whatever our pick and roll coverage is going to be. Jared Allen is up. You look to the right side of the floor, James Harden pretty much hugging OG Anunoby. Jose Alvarado on the left wing, not a big part of this play yet, but even Keon Ellis there is like, well, no, I'll make sure I have hands on you. I just love the early activity, the early answerness from this Cleveland Cavaliers defense. So now as we inbound it, Jalen Brunson looks to OG Anunoby, doesn't have him, get to the Mitchell Robinson, get some navigation from Dennis Schroeder. Not going to get that. We pause it here. They try to go into some off-ball switching. Clean switch early on for the Cleveland Cavaliers. You also have that right hand up or that right arm up for Dennis Schroeder to make sure, hey, Mikal Bridges cutting through. We're not going to let you get an easy pass there if you want to get there. We know you ultimately want to get the ball to Jalen Brunson anyway, but I'm going to take away that early counter if you wanted it. And now as we continue to roll it, Mitchell Robinson going to get the ball to Jalen Brunson. Jalen Tyson goes under. We get to the left. We pause it here. As Steve was talking about a little bit earlier, the nuance of Jared Allen being at the level. It doesn't have to be a full-blown trap. I just need to get up here long enough to make sure that Jalen Brunson is not able to turn the corner. And I was intrigued by this for a few reasons. So one, like we've seen switching with Evan Mobley, it's just the general cross-matching that kind of unlocks more of the switching that Cleveland wants to get into. With Jared Allen in particular, he's more comfortable. I can get up to the level, I can hedge out, I can trap out if necessary. I think putting 2 on the ball against Jalen Brunson in general is something that Steve and we've talked about with the Knicks and how teams try to deal with Brunson over the last couple of years. I think Brunson has gotten better at that coverage, but it still isn't his strong suit right now. And it was interesting to me to see, one, Cleveland deploy this with Jared Allen in particular. 2, how aggressive their help was peeled in. James Harden is way in. Keon Ellis is also in, gets a little bit aggressive. He's ultimately going to burn them later in this possession, but he's also in. And it made me think, like, how much of this is a calculated bet, especially as we get later in the clock. We don't think Jalen Brunson is going to make this weak side skip. I think we can get the ball out of his hands and do so in a non-threatening manner. Ultimately get to Jose Alvarado. Keon Ellis held a little bit too long, but even as Jose Alvarado gets into the paint, he's got Keon Ellis on his back, Jared Allen in front of him, Dennis Schroeder getting ready to sink. Jalen Tyson here has to split between Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby. Jose Alvarado has to work pretty hard to get a clean look here if he wants to score. He doesn't have the lob Mitchell Robinson. He has to make the right read out to the perimeter. So as we roll it, he is ultimately able to get this to OG Anunoby. Jalen Tyson stepping towards OG, gets back out to Jalen Brunson just to try to present a pass there. Mitchell Robinson is a dog on the offensive glass. So it ends up being a Knicks basket, but I did appreciate how active Cleveland was, some of the nuance that they displayed, and how hard New York ultimately had to work to generate something.
I think the biggest thing is when you look at it, it was the pressure and it was the activity, right? And so you have Dennis Schroeder being able to kind of slide under. And then when we go to off-ball movement, like the Knicks like to do, we get a switch. And then if you notice, he passes that on to James Harden. He takes OG going to the other side. So we take them out of that. High pick and roll, our weak side is in. It's just about getting back out and having a clean closeout. Because if you get beat off the dribble, now the rest of your defense has a hold in a different way and you get different help. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson's tough on the glass. But for Cleveland, again, being able to show different things, we mix it under, we have switch, we're switching and get your cutting, and then we're going to be in and pick and roll. So Jared Allen, again, can kind of play some games at his best when he's at the level, dropping back, defense is behind him, supporting him. That's the most important thing on that play. But the biggest thing is that you got to keep the ball in front when you are able to show that help early. And so that's where that top man on that 2-man side, you can't get in too deep and you can't hold for too long because you do have a responsibility. Okay, I'm taking away the role, but I know I have to get back out.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, I understand Keon Ellis being like, hey, this is Jose Alvarado. I think 37% on catch and shoot threes over the last 2.5 years. So, like, I can afford to roam. And Keon Ellis wants to roam and make plays off the ball anyway. But to your point, having the tag on Mitchell Robinson and then holding a beat is what ultimately opened up that catch and drive for Jose Alvarado. So you want to make sure you're in lockstep there. You want to make sure that you're locked into what your actual assignment is. But still, a lot of good stuff done on that possession from the Cleveland Cavaliers. We can now move to the next clip while we're still in the third quarter. And you'll note very early on as we pause it here, Dean Wade has the Brunson assignment again. Not quite full court pressure, but he does have the assignment. You're getting a Brunson cat pick and roll. And as we talked about in the first clip, part of the reason why you put Dean Wade on Jalen Brunson and you have Evan Mobley on Karl-Anthony Towns is so if those two are involved in action together, you can just switch that action without worrying about giving up a quick slip or giving up a pop for an open three. We just want to keep everything in front if we can. And you will also note as things roll, Josh Hart currently on the right wing, he's going to cut through to try to open up some more space for Jalen Brunson. And so now here comes OG Anunoby to give Jalen Brunson the James Harden switch, give him a more favorable matchup to attack. You can roll it from here. Brunson going to come off to his left. He gets the switch. OG Anunoby also going to dive. So as we pause it, now we get to see the amount of space that Jalen Brunson, at least in theory, has here. He has a favorable matchup at the top of the floor. There's nobody on the left wing, so you should have a little bit of space there. Nobody on the right wing if Brunson wanted to go right. But you're starting to see the help creep in a little bit. Donovan Mitchell on that right side starting to get up to that elbow area. Dean Wade playing off of Josh Hart right now. He has room to step up to that right, to the left elbow if he needs to. So Brunson can't get all the way to the rim. He has more space up top, but doesn't have clean lane to all the way to the basket if he wants it. So as you roll it, Brunson tries to get to that strong hand. He's in a crowd, gets to the Josh Hart. We get a switch. A little physicality from James Harden on Josh Hart. And now there's 5 seconds on the shot clock. I will also note OG Anunoby getting ready to set a pin in. Nice little counter to some of the early help that the Cleveland Cavaliers wanted to show. So OG Anunoby getting ready to set a screen on Donovan Mitchell here to hopefully open something up for Mikal Bridges. So as we roll it from there, Josh Hart wants to create, looks to his right, sees the screen, hits Mikal Bridges. But that's what having a deploy on your team also does. If Mobley sees that, like, all right, Donovan, I got your back. I'll take Mikal Bridges here. And now with 1 second on the clock, it is a tough pull-up contested midi from Mikal Bridges against Evan Mobley. Not the easiest shot in the world for the New York Knicks to get. Bridges takes the shot, isn't able to knock down the shot, and this is going to end up being yet another defensive rebound for the Cleveland Cavaliers in this one.
Well, again, if you let it flow, again, this is where that versatility for Cleveland helps defensively because you have an initial switch. We have Evan Mobley there. We talked about the initial matchups. Now we want to get James Harden involved. That's fine. We'll switch it there. And if you hold it, we're going to work to get the boxes and elbows. So if you think about what the Knicks were trying to do offensively, they were trying to clear wings and clear space. But James Harden being able and willing to switch, the Cleveland Cavaliers being able to get to having two bigs on the elbows, getting two bigs on the block, and two wings of the elbows to kind of just discourage the drive. You combine those things together, and now we have, okay, that's fine. You want to put James in action, we'll still switch that, okay? And now you think you have this right side. No, Donovan's here. Dean Wade is creeping in. James can do his job. Now you want to get him off ball, we switch. We still showing help. You don't necessarily have what you want, and now we kind of play with you that way. So I think that's where, again, Cleveland was able to have nuance. Cleveland was able to stay at home. Cleveland was able to contain and contest, and that's what they wanted to do in this game.
It was fun just kind of playing that cat and mouse game with Jalen Brunson. Like, okay, you can have this matchup. You have a little bit of space. You don't get all the space that you want. You get any deeper, you're going to be in some trouble, which kind of sets up the last possession I want to talk about here as we get a little bit later into the third quarter. You have Dean Wade. You have Josh Hart setting the screen this time as we pause it. So now Jared Allen, who we've seen at the level on a few of these clips involving him in pick and roll, now Jared Allen is switching. So we already have a little bit of difference here with what Jared Allen is doing. He has Jalen Brunson now. So as we continue to roll, Josh Hart is going to cut through with Dean Wade. Brunson's looking to attack early, but as we pause it here now, the space that we saw in the clip prior, where Brunson maybe had 2 or 3 dribbles before running into Dean Wade and some of the others, Donovan Mitchell firmly at that elbow. James Harden creeping off a little bit further from OG Anunoby than we saw with him on Dean Wade, with Josh Hart a little bit earlier. And so now Brunson doesn't have as much room to attack even further in the paint. He tries to boogie against Jared Allen. You see the shot contest already. Like, that is a lot of size to shoot over from Jalen Brunson. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers did a better job of showing the crowd so you don't get an easy look. And that's going to be yet another contested mid-range shot for the New York Knicks and another miss. And ultimately, Donovan Mitchell kind of starts at the elbow there after creeping in. He's going to be the one to fly in. I think quietly this was a very good box-out game for the Cleveland Cavaliers as well to make sure the Knicks don't beat them up on the offensive glass. But I appreciated the crowd that the Cavs were able to show on this possession.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the start of that clip, again, it goes back to nuance. So we've seen in this compilation, Jared Allen be at the level, be in a drop, and also mixing a switch against Jalen Brunson. So while we have certain matchups, hey, we have to have an ability to do different things. And so we're giving you the switch, but because we're giving you the switch, we're taking away your space. So you don't necessarily think that you have the drive left or right. That's a shot that Jalen Brunson can make, but we're trying to dictate terms as much as we can. And so if we can, again, get this switch, protect Jared Allen, and know where the help is going to come from and rotate behind that, we're not in the type of rotations you want us to be in. We're not having to show a double or we're not having to commit. We can just kind of just try and disrupt the driving lane, stay at home and recover. So I think that's where, if you're looking at defenses, a lot of times these days, teams are trying to find different ways to poke at offenses. And you have to be able to do different things. You have to be able to mix in different coverages with different personnel. It's not always going to be about the matchup. You have to be willing to, okay, how many people do we have that we think can switch or guard this player? And can we protect them when we give that switch? And if we do that, okay, we can do different things on the fly as opposed to, okay, it has to be specifically this. That's where teams get in trouble in the playoffs when it's just, okay, it's this matchup. Well, that's great. We're going to switch that matchup up. Now what are you going to do? Okay, we've seen James Harden switch. We've seen Jared Allen switch. We've seen Evan Mobley be involved. Dean Wade's size in theory, but it wasn't necessarily just Dean Wade guarding Jalen Brunson. It was a team effort. That's what you need come playoff time. That's what Cleveland displayed in this game.
Yeah, I think it was really good stuff. And just to kind of bring it full circle, as mentioned at the top, a 76.5 offensive rating for the New York Knicks in the half court in this game. Third worst mark they've had in the game this year. They turned the ball over on over 19% of their possessions. That was the bottom 6 mark for them in the game this year. Brunson saw switches on nearly half of his pick and rolls in this game, one of the highest marks that he's seen this year. 0.52 points per possession on any trip featuring a Jalen Brunson pick and roll in this game. That was one of his worst marks of the year. And so, Steve, to close this out, a question that I have for you on the Cleveland front. I don't think the defense is always going to be this, where you're giving up 0.5 to one of the best point guards in basketball or a sub 80 offensive rating in the half court. But do you think Cleveland can bottle an elite level of defense? Do you think that kind of game planning, that kind of cross matching, that kind of physicality can carry on for them through the rest of the year?
I mean, if they want to win a championship, they're going to have to be able to find a way to figure things out on the fly. And I think that was what impressed me more than anything, just statistically or numerically. You're going to have to find a way to have Jared Allen have some sort of scheme versatility where you can mix in switches, you can put two on the ball and rotate, you can kind of have them in a drop. You know what Evan Mobley can do. You feel comfortable with him defending multiple positions. Okay, how much switching can we get James Harden in if teams are going to put him in action? How much switching can we get Donovan Mitchell in if teams are going to put him in action? How much team defense can we have behind that? Can we feel comfortable trying different things? I think is the key for Cleveland. And I think the good thing for them is they showed that in this matchup with the Knicks, every team is a little bit different. So you may have a night where, okay, Donovan Mitchell's struggling with this switch, or James Harden's struggling with this switch, or they're attacking Jared Allen. Can you insulate and protect behind those and have enough in your back pocket to be able to switch and move things around? That's why I think showing these clips is important, because they tried a lot of different things, and in their base, they were able to stay at home without necessarily giving an automatic. That becomes very important come playoff time. So can they? It remains to be seen. The fact that they believe they can and attempted to, that's probably more important than anything else.
Got you. Well, thank you for checking out this first episode of the Dunker Spot Film Room. As Steve mentioned, if you have a better or cooler name for us, drop them in the comments. We are open to submissions on that front. But beyond that, catch me on socials at Nekias NBA. Catch Steve on socials at SteveJones20. Subscribe to the Yahoo NBA YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Dunker Spot. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.